Sorry.
No worries. So I think we do have everybody now. I just lost Barry. Are you still, there you are. Okay. So it is 6:34. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I have one announcement. February 15th, the City of Lewes offices will be closed in recognition of President's Day. That happens to be our next committee meeting for the month of February. So that will be held on Monday, February 22nd at 6:30. So if you can just mark your calendars for that change. And of course, the reminders will go out. We do have two speakers here tonight with us on two agenda items. One is old business, being the Lewes Veterans Memorial, item D2. And the other is new business, the White's Pond Meadow Landscaping Plan, item E1. I know we have one of the presenters here already in the chat. What I'd like to do is move those agenda items up so that those presenters do not have to sit through the entire meeting. And then we'll go back to item B, C, and the other old business item, if everybody is in agreement with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Got a thumbs up from Candace, thanks. All right. So our presenter on new business item E1, which is the review and possible action regarding the landscaping plan for the White Ponds Major Subdivision located off of Theodore Freeman Hwy. We have Mr. Ringer Landon, is that the correct name?
It's Ring Lardner.
Sorry, Ring Lardner. With us here today to go over that. A little background, you may recall that this subdivision proposal was first presented on February 25th of 2019. At that time, a landscape plan had not been submitted with the application. The commission requested that the plan be brought before the committee for review. So that's what we'll be discussing this evening. We have Janelle with us here as well from the Planning Commission. So if we could elevate Mr. Lardner and we can start that discussion.
Ring, you're good to go.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman and members of the commission. Glad to be with you all this evening. Why not in person, but we're still together to discuss and review various things. As was mentioned, we did present a preliminary plan back in February of 2019, of which a landscape plan was not provided, but the commission did provide some comments on the plan, and a couple of changes have occurred. Janelle, are we gonna put the plan on the screen, or does everyone have it in front of them, or how do you want to do that?
I can bring it up. So if you keep talking, I'll share my screen.
Okay.
Keep going, Ring. I'm just bringing it up.
That's fine. I was trying to see what you had on your screen. I don't want to talk about something that you didn't have on your screen.
Sorry, I had it and it went away.
So what Janelle's bringing up, it's still the same 86 lot subdivision as you all previously saw, with access off of Freeman Highway across from Monroe Avenue, which is obviously right across from the Lewes Library. There's a vehicular connection to the south to the existing Schofield subdivision. And then there will be a pedestrian connection to the Babry's subdivision. That's perfect right there, Janelle. So of the biggest changes is you'll see the stormwater management pond number 2 kind of in the middle of the site, where Haywagon Lane is currently shown kind of going straight up and down. That was a road actually connecting Paddock Way to Philly Lane. As part of the preliminary plan process, we removed that road to combine that parcel, open space parcel B and open space parcel C, where you kind of see the trees just to the right of the amenity center. That was one of the recommendations of the commission, was to provide pedestrian access to open space B, as it was landlocked at the time. So with this plan, we have now combined those open space together. So you have a true connection all the way across. There's a sidewalk surrounding it to provide some additional pedestrian connectivity through the site. One of the other recommendations was to have visible property corners for lots next to open space. All the lots will be pinned so that the homeowners know where their properties are. Won't be exactly visible, short of putting a bunch of concrete blocks on the corner, which I don't know is really the right thing to do. In the back, that's probably the only way to really visibly mark your corners. One of the other recommendations was to provide a natural light plant buffer around the stormwater management pond. One of the issues of why we can't do that is DNREC, through their sediment stormwater regulations, requires a 15-foot strip that is clear around the pond. No plantings, no trees are allowed, to allow maintenance of the pond, so that a grass strip is about the only thing feasible to be placed there. And the final recommendation was to give street trees more than 3 feet of space to establish the root zones. We are providing a 4-foot grass strip between the back of the curb and the sidewalk for all the street trees on the property. So tonight we're here to gather your comments and feedback on 3 components of the plan. The first component being the street trees and the buffers. That'd be the buffer along Freeman Highway, and then the buffer between White's Pond Meadow and Schofield. The second item is the amenity area, which is a small pool house along with a pool and deck. There may be some other things provided, like a portable gas grill and the like, but they're still working through those issues. But those are the permanent amenities they wish to propose, which is about the right size for a community of this size. And the final piece is there's some small wooded areas just kind of behind lots 18, 19, and 20 in the upper left corner that are pretty distressed, a bunch of vines growing and everything else. I sent Janelle a couple letters today, which I believe she's forwarded on to each member of the commission. One is by a registered landscape architect. The other one is by a registered certified arborist, and both individuals have recommended removal of those trees and vines and growth, and plant new species in its place. So those are the 3 items we wanted to review with you tonight. We look forward to your comments and suggestions, and are here to answer any questions that you all may have of us.
My question is, this is Barry Duncan talking. Is you said there's a pathway in the open space in the middle. Does that go around the stormwater management pond, or?
Yeah, so it starts between lots 67 and 68. And then it comes into the pond. It'll again go plan north and plan south around the pond. It'll tie into Haywagon Lane on the south. And then the sidewalk continues on the north out to Stormwater Pond 1, and then out to Philly Lane. And there's also a connection between 79 and 78 to Philly Lane as well.
So all these people that abut the stormwater management pond are going to have their neighbors walk around the back of their house and look inside their house as they're walking around.
Potentially, unless they have fences, and then they won't be looking in the back of their houses.
And there's no room for a buffer based on the number of lots you have there. There is enough room to put a buffer if you would change the configuration, correct?
Well, the pond can't get any smaller. That's the size we need to meet the stormwater requirements.
I understand, but if you reduce the number of lots, you could get a buffer in there, correct? I just want to make that. point of
The lots are meeting the minimum lot size. So I don't think they'd be able to shrink the size of they wouldn't be able to shrink the size of the lots to add a buffer because some of them are the minimum lot size that's required.
I understand. I understand.
And Mr. Duncan, I understand what you're saying, and buffers, ponds are pretty valuable to residents. They like to see the ponds.
Well, you don't have to convince me. I'm just asking a
Understood.
question. So it would have to take a different configuration in order to have a buffer around the stormwater management pond. That's my only question, correct? I mean, they were asking about buffers, right? And you're saying it's not possible. It's not possible with this current plan. It is possible if you reconfigure the lots or the site.
So the request originally from the commission was actually to provide a walking path
I understand.
around. But based on that, I don't believe there's enough room to provide landscaping between the back of the lots and the edge of the stormwater management pond.
Not with the current configuration.
Right, and the configuration of the stormwater management pond, as Ring has said, would be difficult to amend because it's meeting the minimum, it's meeting the requirements needed by the conservation district.
But it is possible to have it with a different configuration.
Again, I think as Ring said, the pond cannot be configured in a different manner.
I understand. All right.
Well, I have a question. What is the, you've got the stormwater management pond 2, and then in the middle of the whole site you have, is that a swimming pool?
That is a pool and a pool house, yes, sir.
Okay, and then next to that, if you keep going left to right, there's a big, that big circle. What is that?
That's the wooded area. That my understanding it was a cemetery for some horses. So it's kind of like an orphan wooded area that we plan on keeping. And we've restricted the building areas on 54, 55, and 56 to preserve that wooded area.
Wait a minute, 54?
55 and 56, right? Those three.
Yeah.
So we minimize their footprint so they cannot go into that wooded area. So it's like a conserved area on their lots.
All right. So you've got an open space where pond 2 is with a path around it, no trees, because DNREC won't let you plant trees.
Correct.
And then you have a swimming pool, and then you have a fairly sizable lot of trees that is essentially undisturbed.
Yes.
Who manages that?
The HOA.
Okay. And I mean, I've not been there. Is it filled with invasives and vines and things, or is it fairly healthy? What does your landscape architect tell you?
Mr. Rock, we did not go evaluate that area. We kind of just allow that to be the way it is.
Okay.
So we didn't really evaluate that particular area.
Okay. For people to access that, then if they want to walk in, I mean, is that an area that's going to be fenced off, or can they enjoy that?
They can enjoy that. There will not be any fences.
Okay. And there are no paths up to it or into it. I guess you around it between that and the locks is what, turf, grass?
Grass, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's just not clear on the plan what that is.
I have a question based on something you said. So did you say that the current plan is to have a 4-foot space between the curb and the sidewalk, and that's where you would plant street trees?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, and also, if I read it correctly, the plan is to have the HOA responsible for the street trees rather than the city? Did I read that correctly?
Yeah, that is up for discussion.
So, yeah, well, so my comment here is, my reading of the code is all trees planted between the curb and between the curb and the sidewalk, if it's within the city right away, under the code, the Parks and Rec commission is responsible for maintaining. What I don't know is whether that area would be considered within the city right of way. I'm not sure how that works.
It is in the city right away, and Ms. Thompson, we're more than fine with changing that note to say the trees will be maintained by the Parks and Recreation Commission. That's fine. Other jurisdictions are typically required of the HOA, but we can change that note rather quickly to say by the commission, but it is in the right of way.
Okay, so, yeah, I guess my point would be if you wanted it maintained by the HOA, I think we would need something in the code to say that, but yeah, that would make it more confusing, actually. Yeah.
Like I said, we have no problem changing the note, Ms. Thompson, to say by the commission. That's an easy fix. That's no problem on our end.
Yeah, it doesn't need to say anything, actually. And I will just say this, there are neighborhoods where even though Parks and Rec has jurisdiction, the neighborhood wants to take extra steps to make sure their street trees are nice, and they actually put a lot of effort into making sure they're nice, even over and above what the Parks and Rec Commission does. So I'm not objecting. I'm not objecting to HOA involvement at all. I just wanted to make clear what the status was. But I love having 4 feet of room there. That's very good for the trees.
I don't think it's enough. I'll go on record saying I don't think it's enough.
It's not enough.
I think 6 feet is.
I think the only practical alternative is actually to have street trees under the zoning section or under the subdivision section of the code. Street trees don't mean the trees between the curb and the sidewalk. They mean trees that are not within the city right of way. And of course, if you have a lawn there or something, common area, it's big, and it's better for the trees altogether.
Right.
But then it's not Parks and Rec jurisdiction. So.
Barry, did you have a comment? I saw your hand up a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I was curious about 2 things. What's the size of the lot, and what is going to be the size of the house? Is there going to be a formula or a percentage of open space on the lot?
The lot size is a minimum of 10,000 square feet. The house sizes are unknown because there's no builder tie-in in this community. So that you could purchase your lot and then build a house in the future. I believe there is a impervious percentage in the code, but I don't know that number off the top of my head.
It would be 50% for the houses and 65% for the entire lot, for each individual lot for impervious surface coverage.
So
And
using that math,
what are the
math to be
setbacks?
5,000 square foot house if someone wanted it that big.
What are the setbacks on this lot, since it's in the city jurisdiction?
Give me just 1 minute, because I want to say it's an 8-foot side yard and a 15-foot rear yard,
And
but I'm going to triple check that real quick.
I think.
8 feet and 15.
Because it is zoned R2.
I mean, all that stuff has to comply with the city regulations, so what?
Yes, and
what's
the
you know,
development is actually working on its final plan approval. One of the items, as was noted, was that it needed to come back before you for the landscape plan, because all of the other items have been addressed. It's been to the planning commission. Planning commission has granted preliminary approval. They're getting actually ready to go back to planning commission for their final review to send it to council for their for public hearing and final approval.
So now I found the setbacks. It's a 30-foot front yard, 8-foot side yard, 15-foot rear yard.
Yes, and the lot coverage is 65% overall and 50% for the house. And it does comply with the requirements for open space. It exceeds the 10% that is required for open space requirement. So it is in compliance with all of the other requirements. They've addressed the comments. Again, the commission asked that the trees shown behind lots 54, 55, and 56 be preserved. They have done that. They provided the walking path, and they've added the street trees, which again, if you so choose, you can take jurisdiction over. We noted there was the ability for the HOA to have maintenance responsibility if you so choose, because it's a little different than in the location based on where they could fit them in the code. They are in the right of way, and they are providing that buffer along the road frontage and between the subdivision behind.
Well, as Barry pointed out, with the house is coming right to the property line, 15 foot for the property line is a pretty short amount. And then they're going to have a walking path. Is there going to be like a split rail fence on the edge of the walking path on the side to delineate the yards? Because, I mean, this walking path will turn into a bike path too.
We're not proposing one, but we're not preventing a fence from being installed. We're just not proposing to install it as part of the developer's requirements. The homeowner may decide to erect a fence. And I'm sure the fence types would be placed in the deed restrictions of the community.
Does the stormwater management pond 2, is it a retention pond in that it has water in it all the time?
Yes, there is a wet extended detention pond. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I mean, the object here is to create an amenity out there that people will look at from the back of the house to a pond.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay.
So there was a question in the chat similar to that. And are the stormwater management ponds wet or dry? So are both of them the same? Are they both wet?
Yes, ma'am, they're both wet.
That was from, that question was from Tim Ritzert. Thank you.
Well, my view is if they're meeting all the requirements of the code and the subdivision regulations, they are what they are, 10 feet, 15, 30, whatever they are. They've complied and put a path. My concern earlier on was that there was no way people weren't encouraged to walk in to the center area and walk around it. Now they are with a path, and if people object to having a path at their back property line, then they should purchase a property somewhere else. I don't think we can request a fence or anything like that. That's up to the homeowner and the homeowners association. So they've pretty much done what we've asked them to do.
Yeah, I think our concern before was that they had open space, but it was only accessible by a portion of the whole community.
Right.
Which kind of defeats the purpose of open space.
Right. And now we have four access points, as I recall the plan, into that central space. And I presume, if I take a walk over there, I don't live there, but I could walk in and walk around if I want to. It's open to the public, isn't it?
City property, city streets.
Well, the city streets, the open space is private, it's HOA, but it's hard to say who are you visiting, not visiting, but technically the open space is private. It's not dedicated to the city, but the streets are a public right of way that anyone can access.
Yeah, certainly the streets are, but if you have some enterprising homeowners who go out and put up bird houses and encourage a certain population of birds in there, and people want to go in who don't live there and want to see them, I would think you allow people to come in and walk around the pond. I would hope so. But we can't require that. So go ahead. That's enough. I've made my comments.
There discussion from any other committee members?
Yes, I back to the ponds. They're wet ponds, and there was no overflow discharge to either of those ponds.
So the pond number 2 is going to discharge towards Bay Breeze, where it currently discharges now to in the upper left corner. Pond 1 will discharge into White's Pond.
It's a lot of nitrogen loading.
Denrek's okay with this? Yes, I'm sorry, I'm not going to shut up. You're saying that Denrek's telling you that you can't plant any trees around these ponds?
Yes, sir, but not within 15 foot.
And you don't have more than 15 feet between the water line and the property lines?
From the top of pond, no, 15 foot is where the sidewalk is, and the sidewalk's a few feet off the houses.
That's a shame.
Other discussion along that line? Is there a motion to accept the landscape plan?
I move that Parks and Rec accept the landscape plan as presented with a discussion about the not specifying that the HOA is responsible for those street trees. I don't think you have to specify that Parks and Rec is responsible. Just remove the reference to the HOA being responsible. In reality, yeah.
I'm sorry. So Marty, you're suggesting that accepting the placement of the trees, but not specifying who is responsible for caring for the trees.
Right.
May I clarify, that's just for the trees in the right of way, correct?
Just the trees in the right of way between
Okay.
the sidewalk.
Is there merit to not specifying who is responsible for caring for the trees in the right of way?
Yes, in my opinion, yes. The rationale for me is that the code already refers to the Parks and Rec Commission's responsibilities. And I don't want to discourage the homeowners in the future from participating in that, because there are communities where the homeowners heavily participate to everyone's benefit. So I don't want to make it sound like they're not allowed to participate.
Okay. So the motion is to accept the landscape plan as submitted without specification of who is to maintain the trees in the right of way.
Yes.
Okay, Marty made the motion. Is there a second? I don't see a second. Oh,
Second.
Candace, second. Thank you. Is there any further discussion on any of the elements of the landscape plan or responsibility for maintenance of the trees in the right of way?
I just have a question. Does that include the removal and replacement of the trees behind the 3 lots that I'd mentioned, just for clarification?
Behind lot 54, 55, and 56?
No.
No,
No?
17, 18,
20.
19, and 20.
Okay.
That's on the plan and you presented that to us, so I assume we're approving that.
I just wanted to
In the
double
motion.
check, Mr. Robson, that's all.
In the motion.
Thank you.
And Denrec has approved your stormwater plan.
Not quite yet. We are down to our about 5 or 6 comments. We expect their approval within the next 15 to 30 days.
You know, once again, we're still in a discussion. Nobody seems very enthusiastic about this plan, and the problem is that Mr. Lardner is following the rules as the rules are prescribed. I'm not happy with the rules. Okay, I just think the rules are awful, but we can't ask Mr. Lardner to correct that. So I will second the motion, or if it hasn't been already seconded.
The motion was seconded by Candace. We just
Okay.
brought it back for discussion. Is there any further discussion? Okay, so we have a motion from Marty with a second from Candace. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Have a great evening.
Yeah.
So we do have Dave Shook with us as an attendee. He is here to discuss item D2, presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding establishing a Veterans Memorial at Canalfront Park. We did discuss this at last month's meeting. We did not have a lot of detail. John Nearbos did present to the Public Art Committee last month. Unfortunately, he was not able to be at our meeting in December. Again, he had a conflict, so he has asked Dave to present to the committee what their thoughts are for a Veterans Memorial in Canalfront Park. So Dave, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. There was a PowerPoint that John had sent to us. Janelle, I don't know, can you get that up for us?
Yes.
Or, okay,
I will share it in just a minute.
okay, thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can,
Okay,
Dave, thank
all
you.
right. All right.
So if you want to go ahead with your presentation, and then we'll follow up with discussion.
Okay. Well, basically, I represent the American Flag Guardians. We're a group that veterans that started this organization here in Lewes. And basically, because everyone knows that the flag should never touch the ground, but a lot of folks don't know why. But this goes back to the Revolutionary War when we were fighting for freedom and liberty, and guys would charge across empty fields into enemy fire and were willing to die, but really didn't know why. And then one day the American flag showed up at a battle, and one of the brave men grabbed it and started running across the field with it. And every time that individual got shot, somebody would grab it right away and pick it up off the ground and start running with it so that flag wouldn't touch the ground. And we started this organization because we feel as if the flag is being dropped too often now. And one of the ways is that every single day of the year, 22 veterans commit suicide. So we'd like to try to make a difference. I was on the Canalfront Park board for 2 years. So I've done the movies and I've run the concerts, and I still run the Easter egg hunt, even though I'm not on the board anymore. I'm going to do that till the day I die, I guess. But we're very serious about our efforts. But so I know Canalfront Park, and I love that park. I go there all the time still. And it's one of those kind of places where we wanted to have something, because Lewes is such a historical area, but we want to be mindful of, being too intrusive on people and, being too much of a show. So we are the people that take down the flag and put it half-mast and put it back every day. The three of us from the American Flag Guardians, 3 veterans. So we get there all the time. So we decided that we'd like to ask for the city to have a Veterans Memorial. And I talked everyone into asking that we be considered to do it at Canalfront Park and right by the flag. And what we're looking at is, you can see the Soldier's Cross that was in the presentation. This is what is utilized in the battlefield since before the Civil War, actually, predates the Civil War, where when a soldier died, we couldn't bring back all the bodies. So they would just stick the rifle in the ground, put his helmet on top, put his boots next to it, and hang one set of his dog tags on the gun. So it's very moving for veterans. And when I get down to that park, I see children, their parents and grandparents walking around. And I just feel as if the serenity and the solitude, it's such a beautiful place for reflection. I just love that park. And, you know, it would be nothing would be better in our minds than to have a grandfather or a father talk about his lost relatives or having his experience having served his country, and just to start a discussion to help teach. It's a good teaching moment for families and to talk about service and loyalty and patriotism. So, you know, we're appealing to you for permission to do it. And I'm fully cognizant of the park and all its areas. And one of them is that right by the flag, we have stones and bushes. And so it's like a little tidal area. We collect rain. And so we don't want to infringe upon that. And in fact, we'd love to put it there. Basically, the thing is about 2.5 feet tall, as you can see, and put it on a pedestal. So it's not real intrusive, but something that a veteran would see and could come and talk to his family or just come and reflect upon his experience. And it's something that I think is a beautiful park, and we'd like to work to keep it landscaped in such a way that it's still a functional area, but still have a way to pay tribute and to be, you know, a teaching moment. So my next move, I guess, is to reach out to Mr. Rodney Robinson. And, you know, I know he's retired. However, you know, we're looking to see if Rod could at least point us in the right direction. We're going to need an architect, a landscaping architect, to help us work through the issues there, and to make it something that our city can be very proud of. And, you know, that it would be beautiful and little understated perhaps, but we're not looking for a monument or anything like that. We're just looking for a place that veterans can go and sit and reflect along the side of the water. And I think that, you know, if Rodney could perhaps give us some leads to a good architectural landscaper, I think we could come up with a plan. So at this point, basically, what we're asking is that, yes, go ahead and proceed with your plans to do this with eventual approval pending, you know, what the Canalfront Park officials would deem as appropriate and classy enough that we could do this. And we intend to raise the money and, you know, to do this ourselves, and it won't cost the city anything. So we're very excited about it, and and basically that's you know, what we're hoping is to get your support, and we can proceed from there.
So David, you're talking about doing this right in front of the flagpole. So
That's
right
correct.
area.
Yes. Yeah.
And
between the net house and the flagpole.
And so
Yeah,
you're saying
right
it's
there.
only like 2.5, 3 feet high?
Yes. Yes. And probably the pedestal will be maybe at the most 2 foot square.
Okay. And is this a bronze sculpture? Is this something that you've already sourced, or is this something that you would want somebody to create? Or...
Well, you know, we're hoping that there is a local artist that does bronzing. And so we want to see if it can be done by a local person. That's our first choice, a local artist, to be basically a rendition of the Soldier's Cross. And so, but you can buy them and they look exactly like the ones you see in the photos.
Mhm.
That if we do have someone else do it for us, we'd like to have a local artist. So everything can be all about Lewes, but that sort of leads to be seen. But that is exactly what you're looking at, is exactly what it will be.
So I'm a Navy veteran, 26 years in the United States Navy. And you
Nice.
keep
Thank you for your service.
So Dave, you keep talking about the men, and I don't see you mentioning the female veterans. And so this kind of leaves us out. So how would you address that?
Well, when I think the term men sort of also applies to the men and women. These are individuals who serve their country. So, we hate to make it a gender thing, but certainly it's addressed to the men and women. One of the women that's on our board was a Navy corpsman, and we have actually a number, probably half of our members are female veterans that have served in Iraq and overseas, and some combat veterans. So we are fully represented. The plaque, the bronze plaque could also reflect that, but it's a general term that it speaks to everyone, to all who have served, includes everyone. So we hate to, because I think that's what we're looking for, to all who have served and some who gave all. So everyone knows who that is.
Okay, thank you.
Candace, you're not suggesting that the cross doesn't include men and women, are you? Or are you just saying that you don't see any mention of women?
Candace, you're muted, Candace.
Sorry, yeah. So the conversation was referring exclusively to male veterans, and it's inappropriate to leave us out.
I never, ever would ever leave out any veteran of any kind. So, President Biden just signed into law today, overturned the last administration, and now it asking that trans individuals also be allowed to serve. So I think that we're all evolving and moving forward, but we've totally recognized the commitment that has been made by men and women to make this country what it is. So we certainly are open to anything that you think would, better serve or shine a light on female veterans. I mean, we certainly have probably half of our members are probably female. So
the photograph of the pedestal that you show that indicates to all who served, I'm good with that. I just want to be sure that it's not distinguishing gender when we talk about veterans.
Absolutely not. Anybody who's willing to fight and die for me, I hold in the highest esteem. I could care less, where you come from, what you look like, what your color of your skin is, or what your gender is. I just appreciate it, and I thank everyone for their service.
Thank you. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Thank you, Candace.
So I have, this is Marty, I have a question. And I think we touched on this at one point, and one of my concerns is sometimes Canalfront Park has really large crowds in it based, depending on what events are going on. And at one point we talked about maybe there would be a better location for it. I stopped by Zwanendale Park today, and they already have a memorial to World War I and II veterans, a memorial to a police officer who died. And I was wondering if that might be a good location for a memorial like this too. It's a very serene, very contemplative and quiet place, and really, to me, has a great tone for a solemn memorial like this. I was wondering if that was considered.
Absolutely not. It's at a corner of an intersection that is very busy. There's no place to park. We're looking for a place. There's no more calming area than sitting next to the water, listening to the water and nature. Downtown is not what we had in mind. We were hoping to allow veterans to sit and reflect and enjoy the peace and solitude and nature that the Canalfront Park can offer. So we are definitely looking for Canalfront Park because it's one of the most gorgeous places I've ever been. That's why I volunteer so much there. So
I would like to make a comment. I do not like the depiction of the machine gun or whatever it is. I don't think that belongs in Canalfront Park.
well, that's Soldier's Cross.
Cannons in 1812 Park, they're historical. I am opposed to gun violence. I think that I just don't like the idea of a depiction of a weapon in Canalfront Park.
I understand that, but you understand that there's cannons there, right? That are pointing towards the water, a number of cannons, and that this particular cross has been utilized since before the Civil War. So it's sort of a symbol of those who have served and died. And any veteran who had a friend who died will absolutely know. In fact, any veteran walking by will know what that means. It's not a promotion of gun violence in that the barrel end is stuffed into the ground. So it's really, not intended to do that, to talk about gun violence.
Harry?
Well, how about a different one than the AR-16? I mean, I see what Warren was saying. That qualifies as a big hot discussion between local sportsmen buying AR-15s and converting them to automatics, and that's become an issue with guns. Why not make it a World War II or a Korean War era and roll back to a less lethal looking weapon?
I have seen them in this same Soldier's Cross with an M1 Garand from the Korean War and World War II. So I'd be glad to look into that, Harry. I mean, I'm not opposed to something like that because, considering how many veterans carried that gun, I know I did. So depending upon your age, will depend upon what type of gun you carry. But I certainly could look into something like that. The same type of thing, only with the M1 Garand stuck into the ground. So if you'd like, I'll look into
Well,
that.
it's just a suggestion because I understand where Warren is coming from, and that's a tough weapon to deal with today because that weapon is generally used in slaughtering school children and movie theater goers, and it's while I
Do we
understand.
need a weapon to memorialize veterans? I mean, that's what you're asking. That's the question, really. Do we need a weapon as a part of the memorial?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'm from Wando Park, and I'm looking at the memorial we have in the park. It's nicely done, very simple. I have to agree with Warren. I don't like the idea of a weapon. I mean, it can be done without a weapon, right?
Well, you can't make a Soldier's Cross without a weapon.
No.
I just don't, this is a symbol that perhaps you're not familiar with that is associated with veterans and especially combat veterans. So perhaps you're just not used to seeing something of this nature and it's a little shocking. But I have to tell you that, at any period of time, we are at war and we're having soldiers dying. So to avoid the issue by pretending or changing it from a gun and somebody dying, that's the whole idea. It's a memorial to the veterans who have given their lives and sacrificed for their country. We hold veterans' sacrifices in the highest honor. So that's what it's about. It's not about promoting gun violence or associating guns to murdering children in theaters.
Ed, I saw your hand up with a comment.
Yeah, I agree with Warren as well. I'm a veteran myself, and I just think it's not appropriate for Canalfront Park. And if you guys are totally averse to another location, I don't know. For me, it's totally out of character at that location.
This was
Warren.
presented to the PAC committee. What did they think of it? Barry, you were,
The PAC committee they wanted more details as to specific location and how the memorial was going to be constructed, like what it was going to be. You know, I'm not sure that John presented the crosses to the PAC committee, but their question was more detail about what you proposed to be there and what the group was memorializing, in general veterans or just veterans from a certain era or whatever. So those are the questions that they had.
I think they also did raise the point of looking at other park locations versus simply just Canalfront Park. And the one thing to take under consideration as well, and I don't think anybody is opposed to a memorial, but just what that memorial looks like. And one thing to consider is that talking about, violence, there is a playground in close proximity to that location. So just another thing to consider in how it's,
And
viewed.
is that Pop Deli? No. Or is that the other?
Silly.
Oh.
Should I start boiling?
It looks like Doug Spellman may have his hand raised in the attendees.
Yep, he does. Thank you. Doug Spellman says, men in war died defending our country. Guns are a part of the defense of our country.
Amen.
I've been to a lot of memorials. I've been through Arlington National Cemetery and places most people don't get to because I happen to be with a handicapped person with a handicap sticker. So we drove all over the place. They don't have a lot of guns displayed there. They really don't. And that is one of the most moving memorials I've ever seen is the displays at Arlington National Cemetery. I don't think you need a gun to have a very moving and meaningful memorial. And it really, the idea of having guns on display in Canalfront Park is disturbing to me.
Are there other comments?
I have a question as to whether Fort Miles has been considered for this memorial.
Yeah, we did, but we wanted to be in city of Lewes, and Fort Miles doesn't qualify in that regard. And they already have so many things up there that we don't want it to be diluted. So our whole intent was to honor veterans from all wars and all throughout time by doing that. I certainly, and I do understand the feelings that the particular weapon that is in those photos is a modern weapon. And certainly more people died carrying older weapons than that. So perhaps that's not a good depiction of the veterans that have given their lives for us throughout time. So maybe I stand corrected in that, and I feel as if that was an excellent suggestion, Warren and Ed, and that maybe we do need to consider the M1, which was spanned 4 or 5 wars. So I definitely feel as if that was a great idea and a good suggestion.
Well, actually, not to cut you off, but I was the one that suggested using a more historical weapon. I believe Ed and Warren didn't want weapons at all.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kaiser.
Yeah, no, I'm the
I
same way.
stand corrected there.
I'm against weapons.
Yeah, I don't think it's conducive with the park. I think that if you revisit Fort Miles, a lot of people go there to look at the guns. I mean, they're interested in the history, and I think it would just look more in place there than in Canalfront Park.
Yeah, we won't be going to the Fort Miles. It's not in Lewes. So we're looking to do a memorial in Lewes and not at Fort Miles, because you're right, it's a historical place, has nothing to do, and they have memorials there to people that have died. The whole place is a memorial to soldiers and sailors who have given their lives. So we're looking to do something in Lewes, and that's why we picked Canalfront Park.
So you actually could potentially commission an artist to do some kind of sculpture that might not include a gun, that is a helmet, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's a possibility.
Yes, we could do that. We could look at that option to see what we can come up with.
Any
I
further?
think if I can jump in at this point, I'm Rodney Robinson and I'm the commissioner for that park. You're suggesting you put a monument, first of all, near or next to the existing flagpole?
Yes, right. Yeah, within a couple feet right in front of it. Yes.
Is there a memorial there now or near it?
No.
The nearest one is the astronaut. I don't recall his name.
Freeman, I think.
Theodore Freeman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is nearby, but not at the flag. Correct? Am I correct in that?
Yes, I believe so. Yes, it's not at the flag.
Okay. Well, it seems to me, I don't think people have an objection to putting a memorial in the park per se, or any objection to creating memorials for those who have served our country so well. But I think clearly what people are uncomfortable with is something that's so visually controversial as the Soldier's Cross that you're recommending. I think that's where the problem is. I mean, when I see those, I've seen those. I always think of them as burial grounds where soldiers have fallen, and not, you know, a location in a lovely little public park in the city. So I would suggest that you go back and reevaluate what the memorial would be, and try and find something that's less controversial than a modern weapon like this.
I hear you, and we could do that.
Yeah.
We did have a comment in the chat from Trina Brown, who says, I agree, no guns. So that was a public comment in the chat. So is there any further discussion? Are people in agreement to suggest reevaluation of what the memorial should look like, would look like? Marty,
Not as far as what it would look like. I would like to see more work done on what it would look like, in my opinion, without a weapon. I think we would also want to hear with any memorial that's chosen, we'd want to know about not only initial placement and installation, but also upkeep over time. You know, what kind of upkeep would it take? How would that be done? Who would be responsible for doing it?
Well, I assure you, the American Flag Guardians were already guarding the 6 city flags. So we are the ones that go and replace them when they're tattered We are the ones that go and put them at half mast. We're the ones that go and put them back, all 6 city flags. So I can assure you, if we ask for a memorial to our brave veterans, we will make sure that it's well kept.
Thank you.
So Dave, are you saying it's Canalfront Park or nowhere?
I can't think of another spot that would be as conducive for a veteran. So I know that when veterans go down there, and when you're with your family, especially, it's that kind of moment that you can share. And certainly any other location isn't going to get families that frequent the park on a regular basis or visitors that frequent the park. So it seems like that is, would be a wonderful location for such a memorial.
And let me just say that as a commission, we have to be aware that once we start putting memorials in that park, that opens the door for other organizations to want to come in and be given that same opportunity. And we have to think about, is that the right park where we start doing that?
That's one of my main concerns. And as you know, once we start doing that, everything you put in there has an effect on the next big event that's at that park and how you organize that event. And I'm not saying it's a hell no, but I'm just saying I think we need to be cautious about that. And how many more things are we going to put in the park?
Well, we've been very cognizant of the fact that that park is intended to be about passive recreation. We've worked very hard to keep active recreation to a minimum. There's some there, but only because it was there before the park was, the tennis and the basketball. And so I think our primary obligation is to determine as a group what is the purpose of the park, what is the mood of the park, and what should that park, how should we keep it and maintain that. And to me, it's not that it's not a worthy cause, it's not that it's something that shouldn't be in the city, but is that the appropriate place for it? So I suggest you come back to us. I suggest that you also consider if there aren't any other park, public lands where it would be appropriate.
There is one other comment in the chat from Doug Spellman. Reads, war is an ugly thing, and to deny that guns and killing should be hidden from the citizens of this country is to deny the reality and value of reminding our citizens of the price of freedom. Are there any additional comments?
Could I just summarize so I can go back to the board? Okay, that you don't think that Canalfront Park is a place to, or that anyone that goes to the park should be reminded that veterans gave their lives, and that any memorial that'll be done wouldn't include guns that are used to slaughter children, and something else. I just don't know, and how you can pay tribute, but we will try to work on it and get back to you. So I thank you for your time.
Yeah, but listen, I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that summary
what you said at all. Okay, I don't agree with that summary. Okay, I don't agree with that summary.
Okay.
Wildly inaccurate.
Those are just things I wrote down during the meeting. That's all.
Well, it's inaccurate. And I would suggest that you look at the thousands and thousands and thousands of memorials throughout the country to people who served that do not include weapons. They're all over the place. They're all over Washington, D.C., where I used to live. They're all over Arlington National Cemetery. They're all over everywhere. And most of them don't include guns, most of them.
I'll take that under advisement and I will look. I appreciate that. Thank you.
We did have another comment in the chat that the summary was, well, terrible and biased.
And it was. And it was.
Fair enough.
Right. I mean, we have, absolutely polar views on these type of things. And especially in this day and age, no one wants to reflect upon these kind of things. And hopefully someday no one will be dying, but
I don't think that's accurate.
No, not at all.
That's unfair.
We don't have polar views about protecting our country. We don't have polar views about respecting the people that served. Not at all. But you're not hearing what we're saying either.
And in fact, if you want to be actually historically accurate, if you look throughout all of our wars, most of the people didn't die from guns. Most of the people died from disease and many other causes, not guns. We respect those people too, who died, who went and served and died because of disease and many other causes. In fact, in recent wars, roadside bombs were a big thing too, more than guns perhaps. I haven't seen the actual numbers on that, but I think that's possible.
But the
gun isn't
Vietnam,
the only symbol of service and being respectful to our
Sacrifice.
well, I agree. And I apologize that what I meant by polar opposite views was of the memorial. So we just happened to ask around to what a veteran feels that represents to them the sacrifice, and it came up the Soldier's Cross. So I apologize. That's what I was talking about. Not that you don't care about veterans or the sacrifices or what our world's been through. It's just the view was just different, and I think that's just different across society. So I think the veterans just see this as a symbol of their friends who have died, because they've a lot of these guys, thank God I never had to do it, but had to do a Soldier's Cross. So that's what we're responding to. So I do apologize, and I hope you don't consider that this is not personal in any way. We're just trying to do what we think is right, and I appreciate that you are doing your jobs and protecting the interests of the park and the majority of the people. So I thank you for that.
So if I could just summarize where we go from here, the commissioners are asking and suggesting looking at other types of memorials that may be appropriate as in the parks, and also consideration of either other parks or other public land where such a memorial might be appropriate and fitting for the reflection that veterans and family members and citizens at large may go to reflect on lost loved ones, war, and whatnot. Is that a fair summary for what we're asking?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Dave, if you can take that back to your committee and board, and we can table this for further discussion when you have other types of memorials to present to the commission.
I will do that, and thank you very much for your time. We will look for another location also where we
Look
could
at the
get the
railroad
parking
bridge.
and the people who come by, so
Right.
we will do that.
Okay, and thank you very much for your time and for your presentation and for the discussion.
Yes, thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to find my agenda. Okay, So let us return to the agenda and we can go over the meeting minutes, agenda item B. Have you all had an opportunity to review minutes?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
I had one slight edit. I don't know, if I'm jumping ahead of somebody in the trees part, so.
Okay,
Okay, in the trees part, on page 3, third line up from the bottom, I would say, where it starts with metal tree baskets, I would say, scientific research is not clear on whether, and then metal tree baskets. Add
Marty, I'm sorry, what page in the meeting minutes are you on?
page 3,
Okay,
the trees paragraph.
yep,
Third line from the bottom at the very right, where it says metal tree
oh,
basket.
okay,
So in front of metal tree baskets, I would put the words, scientific research is not clear on whether. And then I'd have the words metal tree baskets are. Take out the word bad, or I'm sorry, take out the word not.
so so we can't change the minutes. If there was a discussion on whether the tree baskets were good or bad, what we can do is just make an amendment to it to include what you're saying about the scientific research isn't clear on whether or not the metal baskets are good or bad.
Why can't we change the minutes?
Well,
Because
because
that's
that
what
was
was
part,
said.
that was part of the discussion and part of what was said at the meeting last month.
Right.
So what we would do is accept them with,
This sentence doesn't accurately reflect what I said. That's what I'm saying. The sentence does not accurately reflect what I said. So I'm changing it to more accurately state what I said.
So simply at this time, say it accurately and it'll go in the minutes for this meeting.
Okay. So what I would say is scientific research is not clear on whether metal tree baskets are bad, but they should be kept away from the trunk of the tree. That sentence is accurate.
okay. Grading too. Okay. Are there any other comments on the meetings minutes? Do I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes of
moved.
December 21st?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, so moving on to item C, the commissioner's report. I'm going to start from my screen again and just go around with who's where in my screen. I think Christine and Candace, you guys are always positioned first.
Is this alphabetical order or?
You notice that sometimes my emails are somewhat alphabetical when I send them.
All right. Well, our report is relatively short. First of all, Patrick Olson planted 2 replacement maple trees in the trailhead or the restroom area bed. That was done in December. And also his crew has cut back all the ornamental grasses in our park. It looks like he's been around doing that elsewhere. And it also looks like he is starting winter cleanups and perhaps in preparation for mulching soon. So that's all I have for the library portion. Candace, did you have anything?
Sure, for Stango Park, Jennifer Noonan, the children's librarian at the Lewes Public Library, was approved to use Stango Park for a children's program that runs Thursdays at 10:30 a.m. It's for this summer. It begins June 17th and runs through August. The request is in anticipation that the conference rooms may not be available for children's programs, and she has included in her proposal that all the safety protocols that are required for children and families to attend the programs will be adhered to while they are conducting those programs in Stango Park.
Okay. Any
all I have.
questions? Okay, thank you. Ed, do you have any? Ed and Harry? Harry and Ed?
You want to go, Harry? You want to? I'll start. Well, Harry and I had very preliminary discussions with. We were approached about the potential use of Smith Park for disc golf, and in our efforts to expand the use of underutilized parks, we're going to work on that, and we'll bring something in the future to the group.
Okay. Thank you.
And Janet did our share of the work by supervising the removal of the pear tree,
All the trees, yeah.
which had been on our agenda, I guess, for the past 2 years, but a little thing like COVID slowed us down. But I can honestly say that the last of the large pear trees are out. And Todd in Envirotech is going to work on snipping off any of the little saplings that might appear from seeds. We're also, speaking of Todd, we're going to be taking a walk around. Marty, Ed, Janet, and I are going to walk around the park and kind of bring Ed up to date and also write down everything Todd says. And so he does know his stuff, and we're looking forward to that. That'll be at dawn on Thursday, I believe. Marty said she's bringing the coffee. Outside of that, the park just gets daily use, and the city's done a great job in maintaining it. We do have the occasional outer space crop circles forming in the way of tire tracks that we have no idea where they're coming from, but they must come from helicopters and then run around and then disappear again. That's my solution.
Well, I do know that most recently they were from the removal of the Bradfords. So they were going back in to put in topsoil and they
did. They filled all of their marks with topsoil and seed.
Good.
So
Okay.
they followed that right up and did a nice job.
Good. Okay.
Excuse me, Janet, it's Jackie.
Hi, Jackie.
Could I just ask Ed, I didn't hear what you said. They approached you about what for the park?
We're in preliminary discussions. We were approached by one of the neighbors about the potential use of the park for disc golf.
Disc, D-I-S-C?
Yes.
Yes,
Golf?
it's like a frisbee.
Oh,
right.
G-O-L, it's G-O-L-F, disc golf. Okay.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
It's probably going to ruffle some feathers, but we're going to follow up anyway.
Well, it's a big park, and
yeah,
we were talking about the area over by the borders on the church,
right?
Not the church, the grave, the mausoleum.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And the graveyard.
Cemetery side.
The cemetery side, and there's a nice big open green space there would be ideal for maybe 3 holes of disc golf. We're not talking about putting in a full 9 or 18, but more or less something that families could utilize. It doesn't take up, all it is a pole, it's a post with a basket, a wire basket. And the whole thing is probably 6 feet above the ground and then easily managed. It's not a big intrusive situation. And I mean, we cut the grass now. I don't think we have to retrim the grass in any fashion. We just have tees and holes.
I think it's a great idea.
There is, if anybody isn't familiar with it, there is a disc golf course over in the state park.
Oh, yeah.
So you can kind of get the size and feel for what it is. That's a full course, not just the 3 or 4, but you
Well,
get an idea.
Every state park in the state of Delaware has a disc golf course, but they have a complete one. But this would just be chip and putt.
Mini golf, yeah.
Mini golf.
Okay, any other discussion for George H.P. Smith Park? Okay, Warren.
I really don't have anything for Mary Vessels or 1812, other than the fact that Cindy DeMedio, the head patron from Lewes and Bloom at 1812 Park, and I met with Marty to discuss pruning of the big crepe myrtle tree down by the Cannon area at 1812 Park.
Okay, thank you.
I just rode by there today. It really looks, I was just thinking, it looks so nice. Both Mary Vessels and 1812, and it's right in the middle of town. And I thank your group for providing that, especially in the winter when we don't see many flowers or much brightness.
Thank you. Do you like Winter Warren? The pumpkin figure?
I mean, the cabbage, it looks wonderful. I've never seen such big cabbages. I just think it's great.
They do look wonderful.
Kudos to Warren and the Lewes and Bloom people.
Thank you, Warren. Lou, any
Yeah.
updates on Zwannendale?
Yes, I'll first I'll report on Dwanadale, then I could, want me just to go into the Lewes Community Garden right after that?
Sure.
Okay, so in Dwanadale, Distinctive Landscaping conducted a major cleanup of the park, including the pruning of all the knockout roses. There are quite a few that I had them pruned to 20 inches. And they cut down all the many liripy plants I have to the ground. And I was doing all this in preparation for the spring growth that will occur. It's by pruning them back, it's just going to make them that much more full. I conducted a park tour with John Nerabius. I guess he was the member of the American Flag Guardians that
Your boss, yeah.
presented at the last meeting. So we went over and looked at the World War I and World War II memorial and discussed it. And then I gave him a tour of the whole park. So after that, I contacted Warren Goldie to indicate I had an interest in pursuing some of the 30 oak leaf holly bushes Lewes and Bloom is offering to donate to the city. And my interest was to add a evergreen hedge row along the fence the city constructed, bordering my adjacent neighbor, the Perryville property. I developed monthly plans for all the activities that I plan to do in Zwannendale Park by month in 2021. I began researching on determining the different annuals I want to plant in the many flower beds located in the park. I obtained a 2021 price list and availability list from my main wholesaler, Murphy Johns. I'm also working with Warren Goldie and Lewes and Bloom to add from their selection. And I hope to finalize my final order in May. I'm not May, but in February for May delivery. The street department completed a repair of the park's storage shed. Many of the artificial cement inserts located in a log cabin design were deteriorated and causing water damage. I want to say they did an excellent job, and they should be commended for their workmanship.
Thank you, Lou.
Now, on the Lewes Community Garden, we did a lot in the last month, okay, in January. We developed our budget and capital improvement program for 2021. We selected and elected a whole new slate of board officers, which included the chair, the vice chair, the secretary, and treasurer. We also appointed committee chairs for our various committees, which included communications, management, garden building, fundraising, outreach, and education. We continue to hold monthly board meetings and committee meetings by Zoom. We decided not to raise the rent for our beds in 2021. Our current rental income nearly negates our expenses, so it's almost a wash. We're reviewing, updating, and expanding our websites. We're investigating the purchase of we did actually investigate the purchase of 3 picnic tables. Actually looking at building them or actually purchase them. And after review was decided our best approach was to build rather than purchase. We have several excellent craftsmen that are in our organization, and they offer to do this service for us. So what we're actually planning to do is to build 3 hybrid A-frame picnic tables constructed of Trex material and natural wood. The hybrid option we feel will require a lot less maintenance and should last a lot longer. We transferred our financial data from Excel format to Quicken to simplify and improve our bookkeeping requirement. We expanded our social network to not only include Facebook, but also added an Instagram account. We're planning to write more articles for the local Cape Gazette newspaper. We found that this is important not only to recruit new gardeners, but it's also a big help in gaining donations. We will start fundraising again this year. About $3,000 was raised early last year before the coronavirus pandemic. We are financially secure and have a balance in our account, which is more than adequate to cover our 2021 capital plans. However, we wish to continue to build our account for future growth. Last year, we had no educational workshops because of the coronavirus pandemic. This year, we're hoping once again to begin on-site educational seminars in late September, assuming it's safe to do so. We were very fortunate to have master gardeners associated with our garden who will help with these activities. And the last item is our workday schedule has been established for the spring, summer, and fall. Activities included will be the filling of new beds with soil and compost, the building of 3 hybrid picnic tables, the construction of 2 bird houses, the establishment of a picnic grove, spreading replacement mulch, and improving our appearance by adding colorful landscaping. And that's it.
Well, that was quite a busy month.
Yeah, that's a lot 1 month, I'll tell you.
That is a lot. Thank you, Lou. Rodney, Canalfront Park.
I'll try and be brief. Patrick Olson has, I believe, completed his repairs to the parking lot area that needed to be done out next to the overfalls. I met with Warren Gold and Peter Eisel from the Friends group and discussed the placement of 10 large containers. They're the same ones that Lewis and Bloom placed down 2nd Street. They have some extra ones. We're going to put them out under the very large pergola on the southeast side of the park, and they will be irrigated. And we have a fee proposal from Patrick to install the irrigation. It'll be permanent irrigation for those, and the Friends group will be paying for that. It will not come out of the city budget.
Okay.
The other thing is that Janet, you and I met with the Overfalls people.
Mhm.
And I think we're going to start having some regular meetings with Michael Safina and Ray Glick. And they went over a number of items, but I think one of the things that is of interest is they are thinking about creating a museum or a larger museum somewhere that would be a maritime museum. And so looking for a home for it. They haven't programmed it. They don't know how large it needs to be. All of that work, it's very much in its initial stages. But one of the suggestions they had was that an addition be added to the park side of the net house. So that would be something that they would be coming to the city at some point in the future if they determine that that's really the right place to go. But I'm just bringing it to your attention so that you can be aware of it. I will let Barry talk about the art installation in the park. And also, since I was self-quarantining for a couple of weeks, I was not able to attend the inspection of the properties out along the Great Marsh. So I'll let Barry handle that also,
Okay.
or Marty. Thank you. That's all I have.
If I may
Did-
comment,
Warren?
the pots were placed in the park, all except one with one short, which is on order. Patrick wanted me to place them there because he said he's going to be doing the irrigation sometime in the near future.
Yeah. You'll have it ready to go by spring.
Okay. Rodney, was there any update from the Friends of Canalfront Park?
No, Peter didn't inform me of any events or anything that they're scheduling it. I'm not aware of it. As soon as I find out
Okay.
about it, I'll let you know. We certainly, you and I talked about that with the two gentlemen from the Overflow
Right,
to make sure there weren't any conflicts.
right. Okay. All right. Thank you. And Barry, Rodney gave you a nice lead in.
I guess he did. I guess I'll start with public art. We have signed a preliminary contract with an artist to install a sculpture in the same place that we were going to put the plexiglass water tower. I should have given Janet a picture of what's going to go there, but basically it's sort of like rocks, like the rocks that are on a jetty, and they're wrapped with thick ropes, so that it's sort of like almost like a mesh pattern that's wrapped around a big pile of rocks, and it doesn't have the splash or the impact that the plexiglass water tower would have had. But what we really like about it, it really relates to the whole maritime industry that Lewes was involved in for so many years with the Menhaden industry and so on. So we think it'd be a great temporary sculpture to put in the park.
There was an article in the Cape Gazette
Right.
with a picture of it. I don't know if anybody saw it, but it may still, you saw it, Candace? You may still be able to find it online. I don't know.
The pictures in the paper really don't
It was not, yeah, it's
do
hard
it
to,
justice. I mean, if anybody wants to see a picture, email me and I'll be happy to send you. But you see a nice color picture. It really looks very, very cool, I think. Very different from what we had wanted to do last year and were unable to do. But I think it'll be a very interesting sculpture for 3 months or whatever.
okay.
Okay, some other things I've been working on. Marty, myself, and Janet did sort of a field trip to Great Marsh Park, and we tried to locate some of the property corners, and just to really familiarize ourselves with the site and what we have out there that can be utilized or developed or preserved or whatever we're going to do with it. Subsequently, I called the State Forestry Department and was put in touch with a gentleman that has agreed to come out and evaluate Great Marsh Park and give us some advice as to how we can manage and maintain it before we start to do any development or any changes, as well as in the future. So he's going to walk the site with us sometime in March or April and give us an analysis. He was originally or spent some time in Lewes, so he's very familiar with the site and some of the other open spaces in the area, the 4th Street Forest and such. So he's very familiar with the park. So that's a great move forward. And we'll also be working on the mission and the vision in the next couple of months. The other thing I'd like to report on, and I think Rodney will probably jump in here too, and we really haven't met again since we gave a report last week with the Pickleball facilities group. As I said last month, we put together specifications as to what we think we need. Again, that was 6 to 8 courts with a pavilion and parking for 40 up to 40 parking spaces, and of course the fencing. We're now in the process of identifying sites that would be conducive for building something like that.
Yeah, what we did was we generated some sketch site plans of what the size of an area we would need to accommodate 8 courts plus a pavilion plus 40 parking spaces. Comes out to about 1.3 acres is kind of a minimum requirement. So that helps us in looking for sites. The other thing is since our meeting, and our meeting is scheduled for February 10th, I believe, our
Yes.
next meeting, I've been in touch with the people out at Sand Hill Fields and their new pickleball facility and gotten costs from them in terms of construction. So by this next meeting, we'll have our arms around what we think an actual construction budget would be for this facility. That's our
Great.
goal.
Okay. Thank you, Barry and Rodney. And last but not least, Marty. It's just the way the tiles went on my screen.
So we are starting to request bids from various contractors to do the work on West 4th Street, the midsection between Burton Avenue and Ocean View. And after we talked to the state urban forester, we've narrowed it down to probably removing 9 trees that are failing, some of which are pears, by the way, and we want to get out anyway because they're invasive. And planting 10 trees of more suitable species. The way we're organizing it, I think we'll have the trees removed in the spring, and that'll give us time to get some of the sidewalks fixed. Some of those trees have buckled up the sidewalks, and at it is talking to the street department about fixing the sidewalks and then planting the trees in the fall, which had pretty good success with. And we're writing specs to make sure the planting holes are as big as we can make them under the circumstances, and we have suitable species involved. Some of the areas, you know, some of those cherry trees all along that area look kind of decrepit, but they're not really in seriously bad shape. And if any of you have been down to, say, the Tidal Basin in Washington, D.C., when the cherries are in bloom, all those cherry trees look decrepit, but they're beautiful. And that's just the way cherry trees look. So we're not going to cut them all down just because they look funny. They're still beautiful and great trees to have around. Even though they do buckle the sidewalk, that's a little.
What trees are you thinking about replacing the?
There are several trees that are, there's a couple hawthorns that are either almost dead or declining. There are the pear trees and.
What are you replacing them with? That's what my question was. What are you thinking about replacing them with?
Well,
I love the cherry trees, but you know.
Yeah, I know, they're impractical. I don't think I'll plant any more cherry trees, but I love them when they're in bloom.
What about Sargent?
Persian ironwood that we did, we put some of those at the trailhead and we put some of those further down 4th Street, and they seem to be doing well. They're actually well evolved for the hot, dry areas along the streets. The urban forester recommended Japanese lilac, but we're gonna look for alternatives to that. And then the third one, gosh, I should have brought my notes up. That can I send that to you later, Barry? Because it's in my notes and
yeah, that's fine. I'm just wondering.
Yeah. The thing about the species, we're going to put a species in our grant proposal, but it's something that we can discuss with the urban forester later on and really nail down the exact species, and something that we hope will thrive without too much effort is what we're doing. Hopefully something that doesn't need pruning all the time and so on. And definitely things that, you know, there's some wires at some of the places that we're planting, and we have to make sure we have something that's not going to be a big problem under the wires in years to come, that sort of thing. We're working on an end-of-year pruning contract. I still have some money in my budget, so things like the crepe myrtle at 1812, the crepe myrtle at Otis Smith. There's some crepe myrtles in Stango Park at the end, and there's a few other trees here and there that we'd like to get taken care of. As to the walkthrough with Great Marsh Park, at Great Marsh Park, that was very enlightening to me and very interesting. And one thing I came away with, when you look at the satellite view or when you drive by, you get a different picture than when you walk through it, because number one, there's areas there that have a really big, wide concrete culvert that I hadn't been aware of that takes up a good bit of the acreage back there. I didn't even know it was there until we walked through. Another thing, you know, that area, as you drive in from New Road on Park Street, to the right, there's a big area that's kind of wooded right now. And I had sort of assumed that was a dry area because it's above the level of the roadway at Park Street. But when you walk around the back, we saw a lot of standing water back there. And in fact, throughout all the areas that we walked, there's a fair amount of standing water in places I did not expect to see it. So that's one of the things we're going to have to take into account when we look at what can be done with the rest of that park. And you know, we certainly want to avoid any issues with you know, sending our water off onto someplace else, you know, as we've had issues with other locations.
Well, some of them are vernal ponds, so they'll come and go.
They'll come and go, but if we pave it over, they won't come and go. They'll just go.
Yeah,
Go someplace else.
you don't know where it goes.
Cautious about. So it's going to take a lot of effort to really figure out what can be done with that acreage, and how to make it the best use for all of our citizens. So but that was interesting. I look forward to hearing from your expert on what he thinks of what can be done.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it? Okay, thank you, Marty. I think that covers all of the commissioners' reports. Any comments, questions? Okay. Our final agenda item, and Lou touched on this a little bit. Under old business, item D1, last month, we had discussed, Warren had presented that Lewes and Bloom has about 30 holly bushes that they would like to donate to the city. And we had some preliminary discussion last month, but needed to get a little bit more information on the species and thoughts on where they might be able to be planted. I think that, well, I've heard from a couple of you. So it sounds to me that there is enough interest and we have enough locations that might be feasible for that. I know, Christine, you had some thoughts, I believe, on where you might be able to use the trees. I think you're there you go.
Okay. Yes, I'd like to use or try to find a place for possibly 10 to 15 of the trees, and just wanted to make the rest of the commissioners aware that we don't have room for too many more than that. And it would be, we're looking at the area in between the parking lot of the library and along the bike trail. And spoke to Marty about it, and there's a limited space in one particular area. We need a 10-foot clearance on either side of that power line there. So I really not exactly sure how many we can use, but I wanted to bring it to the commissioner's attention that, you know, I'd like to at least use some of them.
Okay. That sounds like a good plan. We also had discussed, and I know Rodney, you had mentioned that the trees that are lining the basketball court now had some issues. Were you still considering the hollies? I know there was discussion of the pruning as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't put them there, as I thought.
Okay.
I looked into the holly. They're hybrid hollies. I believe they're Asian hybrids primarily, and they want to get, if you leave them alone, they'll get nice and wide and fairly tall.
Okay.
And so, although they would be a good screening tree, if you had an area where you needed to create, a border or something. For example, I've always thought that the parking lot behind BB Hospital that slopes down towards the pond is a bit of an eyesore, and it would be nice to plant along that fence line and create a buffer of evergreens. So I'm not sure whether there's enough room, but that's the kind of application I would look for.
Really wet.
It is really wet.
Even
Yeah.
today, even
But
today.
some hollies can
very
take-
swampy.
Yeah, some,
They don't
some-
like wet feet, so
well, we
It's
have to
a
check
holly.
that because
very swampy. Yeah.
American hollies grow almost in standing water.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what the lineage is on these, but that's exactly the information we need, Ed, because I'm aware of the problem there.
Yeah,
It is
yeah,
wet.
Also, we don't have an exact idea of where our property line is by those fences.
And we also don't know what BB's going to do. So
BB's
Well,
going
we
to
can
have a
always
second
move them.
garage.
We
yeah.
ought to find out, because doesn't
We're working
the
on it.
water drain off that parking lot into the park?
Yeah, it's a swell.
Yeah.
It comes in multiple directions, and
And are they doing a lot of development there?
They're going to build a whole new parking garage that looks like the other one. They're
Yeah.
going to take down the small one-story buildings.
And where does the water go that comes off that building?
well, it's probably going to end up in Blockhouse Pond.
Yeah, well,
Technically, they're not supposed to empty any water into our property. They're supposed to solve that problem themselves.
We'll see.
sounds like we have a lot to find out, then, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, another thought, if there was interest is, and I know we talked earlier about the disc golf being back in that area, but a bit of a buffer between the park and where the cemetery is up on the hill. It sounds like they would grow tall enough to kind of give a distinction and a separation there if that were of interest. I don't know how wet that is there.
That's not bad there. And I mean, we'll take them.
Okay.
We can use them and we wouldn't have to worry about pruning there.
Right, right. So I hope it might not be too intrusive, but just give some definition of the boundary of the park. So it sounds like there's.
Also on the school side, maybe too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it sounds like, Warren, there is certainly enough interest from the commissioners and other locations in the city that we talked about last month, perhaps down on Gill's Neck by the bicycle stands there, to just give a little shield of protection that we could certainly accept the offer, the very generous offer of Lewes and Bloom. Is there, oh, Marty, you're muted.
Before you plant them at the bike, at the bike racks at Gill's Neck, I have to say, I think they're probably too big for that.
Too big? Okay.
Yeah, because I don't want to plant them where we're gonna have to constantly prune them all the time.
The constant maintenance and pruning. Okay, that's a good point.
There's hollies even and other evergreens we could consider that will never get that big.
Okay, good point.
And there's a tremendous amount of wires and piping in that area because
Okay,
I've looked into that in the past.
okay. Well, that's good information. It was a suggestion that had been brought to me. So putting it out there without knowing that information that you have the history with, Warren. So thank you for that. So is there a motion to accept the offer of Lewes and Bloom and the donation of the holly trees for the city of Lewes and Parks?
Yes, I make a motion that we accept the holly trees for consideration in some of our parks.
Thank you, Christine. Is that a second, Barry?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the second, Barry. Is there any further discussion?
No.
Okay, so hearing no further discussion, all in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. Again, we thank you, Warren, and to Lewes and Bloom. And I believe that brings us to the conclusion of the meeting. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Look at y'all. All right, Rodney, I saw you first. Rodney makes a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Harry. Okay, thanks, everybody. Great meeting, good discussion.
Bye.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.